Hello, everyone, and welcome to the C2MCI's EDII Catalyst podcast. For new listeners turning in, I'm your guest host, Mark Aloisio, and in this podcast series, we will explore topics of equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigeneity in STEM, featuring guest speakers from diverse backgrounds and perspectives discussing their lived experiences, as well as provide resources and tips on how to create more inclusive and equitable environments. Through this, we hope to inspire you to become a catalyst for change in your own communities and workplaces.
So this week we have Seán Barry here with us. Seán is my supervisor. He is a full professor and also the chair at Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario. He works primarily on precursor compounds for atomic layer deposition. He was originally trained in inorganic synthetic chemistry by Darren Richardson, just down a little bit north at University of Ottawa. And then after that, he spent 3 years working on CDD and ALD precursors in the Roy Gordon group over at Harvard University, a little small university. It is a pretty small, it is a very small university. He started working at Carleton in 2003. He was mainly working on guanidinates for group 13 metals, moved on to some other NN chelates and N heterocyclic carbines on coinage and mid-transition metals. He has also founded a company known as Precision Molecular Design. He's the director of the CU NanoFab and is just generally recognized as a world expert in ALD and precursor design, which he has literally written the book about. He does have a book on it. He also has some long-standing collaborations with some different industrial collaborators. I won't go into all of the names of them, but he works with a lot of companies in the electron sphere. So, welcome, Seán.
Thank you, Eden.
So this week we're going to be talking about allyship in STEM. So one thing that you might know if you've worked with Seán's group for a while is that we've got a fairly diverse crowd of both grad students and postdocs coming from, all different backgrounds. So we're going to have a couple of questions about how allyship works with Seán.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So the first question we have for him is, what policies, I haven't all heard it out already, bro. What policies and lab practices have you found to be useful in promoting equity within your group?
All right. So policies we'll call formal things. And by the way, for anybody who's watching this, one of the aspects of applying for funding, particularly NSERC, but in most fundings now, is an EDI section where you can't say, oh, my menagerie of EDI looking people look like this and look like that. That's a terrible way to do it. Of course, pretty dehumanizing way of thinking about EDI. But rather it's based around what are your practices, and practices mean what are your formal policies that are in use. So a formal policy that we have is we've got an EDI director or our EDI manager in our lab. That's actually Eden. And so their job is to make sure that everybody's up on their EDI training. When there's an EDI event, it's brought to our attention. If there's something that is non-equitable, it can go through Eden. If there's some equity, diversity, or inclusion in like element that we could include, Eden can bring it up. That's kind of like, that's a real policy. So that's something that we do, we've implemented. One thing that I wanted to implement, just from a kind of equity point of view, that I have never gotten around to, we've talked about, is chairing departmental or chairing group meetings. So I chair group meetings. I'm pretty forceful for those of you that know me. And so the group meetings are always, I go around the room and bug everybody about manuscripts and projects. Then we do a literature presentation. Then we do a research presentation. And we also always have a snack. And so that schedule is made up and I chair it all the time. One thing I've been meaning to do, which is an implementation we should do, it just never seems like the right time to do it, is to allow members of the group to chair the meeting for a couple of reasons. I think it's good for anybody who wants to get into academia or industrial science in a heavy way to know how to chair a meeting. Chairing a meeting isn't about getting what you want. Chairing a meeting is making sure that everybody has the same voice and the same approach and the same freedoms in the meeting. So it's a good practice. Two, it takes it away from the PI who gets all the attention and glory anyways and hands that out to the HQP, as we would call you, would have been a grant. The problem with that is it's another burden of work, it's a scheduling issue, and also right? We don't have a lot of free time in our lab. There's always a burning research thing that has to be done. Eden is right now taking valuable time away from some AFM measurements that we desperately need to do this. And so probably in the summer we'll implement that. Yeah. And then the last one, we've got a bunch, but the last one is unique, or not unique. It's unusual in Canada. It's more common in Europe. Members of my group can be the corresponding authors on papers. And if you've been in my group, you know this is the case. It isn't for free. You do all the work. You assemble and write the manuscript majoritively. You handle the authorship list. You do the submission. You put up with the reviews. You cry in your pillow more often than you would if you were just an author. But you get a star on your name. And I think that's good for anybody, any HQP of any stripe. And of course, right when I was younger or when I was coming up, I really wanted corresponding author papers to demonstrate my work. Now I got over 100 papers. So it doesn't really matter. I'm always at the end. Everybody knows it's my group. Everybody assumes I did some work. So it's something that I can more easily share. So that's an equity practice.
Yeah. Most of these seem really focused around the idea of giving your HQP a chance to shine, to take on these additional tasks, and then, sort of learn and develop.
I will say this. Also, if you've been in my group, you know that the general overarching practices are the roommate rule and the kind of like get along shirts. And the roommate rule is if everybody's doing just a little more work than they think they should, then all the work gets done and nobody feels like their work isn't getting done or being met, or there's work that's being left over that somebody's being lazy about. And the get along shirt is you can disagree, you should disagree, right? But that should be predicated on a healthy respect and, hopefully a friendship or a relationship that isn't jeopardized by disagreeing. Yeah. And both of those are just kind of overall practices in our group. And I think those are really the fundamental building blocks to something like inclusion and equity.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Our next question. Students from marginalized backgrounds sometimes experience microaggressions. How do you support them when these microaggressions are coming from faculty, staffs, or their colleagues? When, they have the source of the microaggressions, how do you support them at that?
Yeah, let me use an example. Do you mind if I use?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I think you know where I'm going to go with that.
I do.
Because it's pretty benign.
It is pretty benign.
But there's a systematic microaggression in most universities that when you sign up with a name, that name is forever your name at the university, regardless of whether or not you may have changed your name and or undergone some kind of transition. The system is not built around the idea that people transition in life to different things. And so Eden started as an undergraduate, had a different name. That name pops up every so often. And at one point, I forget what it was,
OGS rejection.
Insult to injury.
Yeah.
But I do know that it's called dead name, but I had come up with what I thought was a better for
Legacy name.
Legacy name.
I do like legacy name.
Eden's legacy name came up in the system. And I said, what about the name, dudes? Is it worth chasing down? So the first practice, ask, right? I'm not white knighting here. Do you want me to step in? And when you say yes, then my role is isn't to then negotiate with you and the two of us go and we go together and do the thing. Once you say, yeah, I would like this taken care of, then my job is to take care of it.
Yeah.
I take on the burden. I've got the bandwidth. I've got the authority. I've got the rhino armored skin to go into the stupid system and just bug people until that name gets changed. I will point out that in the OGS system, Eden's name got changed to their existing name, and yet the legacy name persists in every other corner of the internet. But part of that, right? It's not a bad thing, but my job is to do the work.
Yeah.
Right? I've got the honor of being privileged. So I can go in and do the work. But of course I need to make sure you want the work done.
Yeah. And I will say it was quite nice in the following year when OGS rejected me to use the correct name.
I know. So
I was so happy. I was like, oh, thanks for no money, but the right name. Okay. Next question. How has having a diverse team influenced both the culture and the research scope of your group?
I'm not sure that EDI as written in a university policy would change the scope of research. But diversity definitely happened. I'm gonna bring Maram in on this one. Maram came to our group from a different group, and she wasn't having a great time in that group. And she was like, Can I join the group? And I said, well, okay. And she said, I want to work on MOS, metal organic framework. And I said, no, we don't do that. I need somebody actually at the time I was hiring for the C2MCI. I said, I need somebody to do C2MCI work. And she said, but I really like MOS. I said, okay, tell you what, spend all your time on the C2MCI. And then if you have any extra time, you can work on MOS. And 2 months ago, we published a cover article paper in Chem Materials on her MOS. So, it's extra work. It's extra work for everybody. I got to find funding and a reason, and I got to convince, and I got to make room on all of the instruments and tools and space that we use. Maram's got to put in an extra effort to work on her project, her pet project, as opposed to her paid work. But ultimately, everybody's doing a little bit of extra work there. And that, Maram, being one of the diverse members of our lab, brought in a diversity of thought. But I'm going to take this up a level because I'm also the chair of the department, and I've been on a bunch of hiring committees. And the first thing I ever learned on the hiring committee is our diversity issue does not exist in the applicant pool at all. It is 1 million people from 1 million walks of life, from 1 million different countries with 1 million different differences. They're everywhere. And the job, of course, if you've ever been on one of these things, you can get hundreds and hundreds of applications, some of which are garbage, some of which are great. Once you go through and filter out all the great ones, diversity is still there. Yet we hire white men. It's not the pool. The pool is not diverse. The selection process is non-equitable. That is the problem. You can argue till you're blue in the face all you want about selection and these people are being promoted over those people, and this is being, it's non-notorious. But when you look at a diverse pool of applicants that are pre-vetted to be appropriate for the job with a narrow range of excellences now, right? And then you only choose the men, that's that's the process, not the pool. And that was a big lesson. The first time I went through, that happened. The second time I did it, Maria DeRosa had just become our dean, and she said, I want a woman. And the hiring committee was like, well, I don't know if we can just hire a woman. And I'm like, there's 100 million women in this pool or whatever. We're not gonna have to break a rule to hire a woman. We're just gonna hydrate for women. So whatever. That's what equity is. To remember that we're hiring outside of the old white male sphere, and to make sure that those get brought forward. Because guaranteed you're going to bring the old white men forward. Look at this podcast. Anyway, so it's getting better, right? Diverse faculty. And people are bringing in ideas and thoughts and processes from other fields of chemistry, but from other institutions, other worlds and other nations, other places in the world. And so that makes our culture of research better, but it also makes our culture better, our inherent teaching, research, camaraderie culture in the department better, richer, more interesting.
Well, our most recent hire in the department, Kate Marthenko, is really, really focused on outreach, on, of that development of a graduate student culture. And it's been a really big boom in our department. There's been a lot more initiatives. There's been a lot more outreach, and it's helped the culture in the larger department feel more cohesive.
And she won the Polyane Prize.
Yeah, she just won that.
Promoting excellence.
Yeah. All right. I have 2 more questions. The next one. Not every student requires the same type of mentorship. What mentoring styles have you found success with, and why?
Yeah, right. I've got one mentoring style that's pretty point and shout oriented.
Yes.
I will say, I think a good rule is you should see yourself reflected in your supervisor. And as a supervisor, you should never expect somebody to do something you aren't actively doing right now. I'm chair of the department. People want teaching releases. I've never taken a teaching release, even though they say you can have one as the chair. I've never taken one. And it's not just so that I can point at people and be like, well, I don't have one, so you can't have one. It's more to lead from the front. Show people what needs to be done and they'll do it. Ask people to do things without a demonstration. They won't follow through. You want grad students at the seminars, their supervisors have to be going to the seminars. That's what teaches them. Going to the seminar is important. I know I'm not everybody's mentor.
Yeah.
And so C2MCI is a good example of this. I've always collaborated widely. I like it a lot. Actually, it means more travel, which is what I really liked. One of the things I really like about the job is travel, but it increases diversity of thought. It increases what you can do on a project. And in this case, like it gives other examples of supervisor. Right? If I said to Miriam, you would benefit from maybe a supervisor that looks more like you. Then she finds like she can go to Dubai with it. I can't remember. And Sophia could like put her at a conference, have her in a group, spend a little time there, learning what life is like under a female supervisor that looks more like her and acts more like her and is from a part of the world she's more familiar with. Right? I can't do that for her. I can be kind and nice, but I can't show her what she would look like as a supervisor.
Yeah.
And so I think that should be reflected more. As a matter of fact, Maria ran the CSC last year, and she got Andre Isaac, and she asked him to talk about his chemistry because he's famous for his kind of like
Lab drag almost.
lab drag. Yeah, great. Actually, that's true. Yeah, that is great for his like kind of lab drag angle. And she was like, I kind of want to put some clear representation, but I want it to be like, here's the molecules that we make, here's our process, here's what my group looks like, here they are working. I mean, he shows them working, of course, but like, I really like that the emphasis wasn't necessarily on what he's famous for, but him being famous for lab drag got him to the CSC where he then talked about organic chemistry.
Yep.
I think that is exactly what like a positive mentorship style would look like.
Yeah. And it's also worth mentioning that if you weren't at the most recent CSC, where he was a plenary speaker, he was also present for a couple of other talks in sort of like the wide queer section at CSC. And I believe we had a room of like fit for 50 and it was standing room only. We had easily 100 people smashing in that room just for an opportunity to see someone that reminded them of themselves, someone that they had a shared common experience.
Or an aspect of themselves.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be a carbon copy of it.
Yeah.
It just has to, you have to be able to look at leadership and see yourself being able to do it by seeing parts of yourself reflected in it already. Right? If you're marginalized, why should you be the one making the change? Like, why is it on you to suffer marginalization and make the extra effort for change? And like, why you have to do everything when the people at the top not only are doing nothing, but are maybe actively fighting you on. That's it. And that's what allyship is, right?
Yeah.
Permission first, of course, but to get in front and be the vanguard.
Yeah.
Right?
Be the shield.
Yeah.
This one, I believe we've already talked a little bit about it, but I'd like to recircle back to it. How do you help elevate the voices of quieter or less confident students or HQP within your group and within the spaces you occupy?
Well, one thing shy or less vocal HQP learn in our lab is to become less shy and more vocal.
Yes.
So I said this a million times, but right, research groups are a collection of weirdos of specific talents. Ours is a particularly weird collection of weirdos, but that's not that different.
Yeah.
How do I amplify that? I want to be a sensitive guy, kind of. I want to have this sense to help quieter people that aren't like me to breathe in the same room I'm breathing in and use the same oxygen that I'm so obviously use so much of. I want to do that. That's actually a flaw I think I have, or I know I have, that I do talk over people. We had a meeting because we're going to Japan and we've got to get all this data together. And Miriam and Eden and I had a meeting, and Eden and I got a big disagreement about the order and types of experiment. I think it came out okay, but it came out okay because Eden and I are the same level of aggressive.
Yeah.
And Miriam was there, and she came back after the meeting and said, look, I've got some thoughts, but I just couldn't say them in this meeting because you and Eden were at it too hard.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe good mentorship that she felt comfortable coming back, but it's poor mentorship in that she had to come back. right? We could have made, and this is you too, right? You're in leadership in the lab. You're a senior PhD student. We both could have made a little more room at the table for Moran. We know she's quiet. We know that when we get into it, even joking around or like disagreeing about something or other, you want to realize it. You want to be an ally in that way. I think that's a very strong tool. It's definitely one that I have to work on a lot.
Yeah. But what I will say is that we were able to repair after the fact, which I think is one of the most important things.
Sure. Well, that comes from trust. I was going to say, I put something in LinkedIn that we're going to be on our best behavior because Eden and I can get a little blue with our humor.
Yeah.
It's really not very HR compliant, nor is it particularly EDI friendly for people that don't know you. And one thing that I think is important about being an ally, that's what I am, is that you have to realize that you have to earn a person's trust before they can trust you to make a joke that might be a little bit like offside. They trust you to be on their side of that joke. And this is so in my group, right? I'm joking around all the time. I always try to tune humor so that it is with you, not against you.
Yeah.
You are included in the joke. You're not the butt of the joke. Yeah, that's a good policy. All right. I think that one I'm good at. I think I'm good at inclusive humor. My humor is not for everybody, but I think the inclusion aspect of it is okay.
Once you build that rapport, once you build that trust, making jokes is kind of a way of bonding.
Well, it's definitely it.
It helps with cohesion. And
I tell my favorite Eden story. I've told it a million times. I know that Eden loves the story. Eden has two nicknames in our group. The Bean comes from a nickname from early, and Crash Goodwin is Eden's other nickname, which I love, by the way, a lot. And it comes from the fact that after Eden got rejected by OGS twice, one is called a PGSD, so an NSERC PhD support. And then in the same week, Kieran in our lab won the master's one, CGSM.
Yes.
And so we went out for beers to celebrate. We went to Mike's place, and Mike's place has two dartboards. One that's where a dartboard should be, down an alley with no shows in front of it. And the other one is right behind a bench that's got tables and stuff. And so Kieran was like, oh, let's play darts. So we had to move all the tables and the chairs, and we had to put the blanket over the bench, and we were going to play darts. And it was Molly, me, and you, and Kieran.
Yep.
And I had just shot. No, you had just shot, and Molly was taking her turn. And Eden went to one of the tables, which was moved away, and kind of leaned back on it on her arms. Yeah. And it was a center post table, and the whole thing went like this. And Eden went over backwards like a turtle. And on the way down, like flailing, took out a whole Cessna table, which had a beer on it. So this beer went flying through the air, and it was like, it was chaos.
Yeah. Rube Goldberg machine full of chaos.
And so at the end of it, it looked like a bomb's gone off in this section. We're all standing around in shock. The manager of the room was really very cool with it.
Very nice.
Asked if anybody was hurt. We said no. And then asked if everybody was sober, which we were for sips of beer. Then Eden went for a little walk because the room also was full of people. And so, right, to get out of the attention zone. And so I'm telling that story for two reasons. One, it's a story I know that Eden likes and you can trust me to tell.
Yeah.
So that you're not the butt of the joke. It was funny as hell.
It was.
But it includes you in that humor. And two, I want there to be a record of that story.
It's a very funny story.
Yeah. And so now we've recorded it.
Yeah.
So
it lives in memoriam.
Yeah.
Forever. One thing about trust about that story is Seán never really tells this part, so I like following it up afterwards, is the first thing that I saw when I got up was Seán reaching down to help me get up.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that's where the trust comes in, is that afterwards we can go back, we can revisit this, and it's really, really quite funny. But in the moment, the support was there. In the moment, it was, are you okay? Are you safe? Do you need a couple of minutes? And then we went there. I went out for a bit. I came back. I finished my very small amount of beer. Then we all got out of Dodge.
That was a funny instinct. Yeah, we're all like, let's just finish our beer, as opposed to let's get out of here before we have to pay for two people.
Yes, exactly. All right, so that is the end of my questions. And I believe we do still have some time for the audience. Oh, Moran has a question. I will save my generic question then. Moran.
Is there a question that you wish Eden asked you and Eden didn't?
That's always the last question on my final exams. Is there something that you studied that I didn't, that you prepared for that I didn't ask about? No, you know what, Mariam? I tried not to go into this with too much prepared, canned answers. I'm confident with my ability to speak, obviously. And I wanted this to be honest. Like, I wanted to come up with the honest responses, not some kind of like university level gobbledygook about EDI. I firmly believe in it, but I think that like the word salad of EDI gets brought out too often, right? It's too formalized. It's not human enough.
Yeah.
And so is there something I wish Eden had brought up? Actually, maybe. I think that one thing that I do in the group, maybe I should have brought this up, is that when we go to bring somebody on board or when we talk about a new grad student, we talk about them in group meeting, right? If they're from Carleton, most of the group will already know them from TAing or somehow. When they visit, I get them to visit the group and talk to people. When they apply, I get them to write emails to the group and ask what group life is. I do that for two reasons. I want to make sure that the vibe check is there, the group is happy with them. But two, right, diversity helps diversity. And so if I've got a bunch of people on the lookout for potential grad students, I'm going to end up with a more diverse group of grad students, which means we're going to continue to have a lot of different interesting contributions to what we do. So thank you for letting me bring that up.
So a question from Joshua from Western. How different is the landscape of people from when you started in academia compared to now?
That's a good question. So I would say and I think most people my age can back this up, right? Like, so I got my PhD in 96. I started in 92. Right about then, it was male centric, but there were probably on the order of 25 to 35% women PhD candidates, which I bring up because by now that should be reflected in faculty, and it isn't necessarily. Again, selection bias. So I would say that from a male to female ratio point of view is about the same, a little worse. From a diversity of faces point of view, we had a lot of people from Asia and a lot of people from India, which is because of immigration policies in Canada. So we had a little bit, we had a bit of diversity that way. From a queerness point of view, it was really right the era of don't ask, don't tell. So you didn't know, so zero representation, truly. And then inclusion, I couldn't say, but it was pretty white compared to now. It was similar. I think it's probably more like 50-50 female to male ratio.
It's getting closer.
Getting closer.
Yeah.
So slightly different there. So yeah, I think it's quite different. I think the real difference, and I don't know if I like this or not, the real difference is the level of competence and versatility is much greater now in HQP than it used to be. Like you didn't have to be writing a paper every year. Undergraduates barely ever were on manuscripts or papers. I mean, the occasional one was. And now it's pretty standard. Like when we get a 4908, our first thought is, what manuscript is this person going to be on? Not what is their thesis going to look like? Yeah. I think that's good if you're getting into academia. I think that's a lot of pressure. I think that's a bigger difference I noticed than the diversity difference. Although, right, much more white.
So a question from Hannah, for both of us, actually. Do you have tips for others in leadership positions who want to show their support for lab members without doing it in a performative fashion?
You want to go first?
Sure. So one of the things that I have found the most useful, at least from the position of, being in a marginalized group, I have found that sharing and finding moments of similarity in our experiences have been very helpful. So while I may not be marginalized in the ways that other members of the group are, I am still white. I, still benefit from a lot of systems of oppression. I can still have moments of like solidarity and similarity with my members, and I can sit with them in their feelings with that. So I think both humanizing yourself is really useful, but also letting a human connection happen has been really, really helpful for me in terms of like a non-performative support.
Yeah. And I think from my point of view, non-performative support, and I will shut up both Copy and Paul, because we both do this, adopt problems and give up glory, right? If if you're going to benefit from something, can somebody else in your group benefit from it? And can they be the only one that benefits from it? That's truly like, and it's not generosity, right? It's equity. And adopt problems. We've already touched on this. The leader of a group will have a lot of privilege, even if that leader has some axis on which they are marginalized. They will have a lot more, opportunity to cause problems than you would, and that has to be their job. So adopt problems and give up glory. I think that's a really good way to that, because that is definitely not performative, and it's hard to do. It's hard to want to do that. And so when it's hard to do, it's worth doing or whatever. Yeah.
So since you have strong experiences working with industry partners, how do you usually ensure that students are well supported throughout these projects? How do you balance your support with the industrial demands that come along with it?
I would say, how do you balance that? I think by not balancing it. Industrial partners are also EDI partners. They also benefit from and do like to promote EDI, but they will have demands. And demands are a good learning experience. This is what it's like to get funding. This is what it's like to keep somebody so that the projects are beneficial to everyone and promoting what they need. I don't love asking people to work on the weekend, but I asked Eden to work last weekend. Also, I asked Eden and Moran to sort out between the two of them who worked on the weekend.
Yeah.
Because we're just in a position where we need the work done. I even emphasize that after this, there should be time off, there's time in lieu. But the demands are there. There's no sense shielding Eden or Moran from the demands of this project, because it's unfair for them to think that there are no demands and then to go out in the wider world and find that out. How do I balance this with my support? Well, I'll tell you what, with industrial partners, I balance it financially.
Yeah.
I pay a pretty solid salary for postdocs and have for years. It's much higher than many of my colleagues. And the reason for that is because an industrial partner will pay. And it's not, right? It's not a payoff. It's more, your worth is a lot of things. Your worth is your dignity, but your worth is your salary. And so one of the main advocacies I can do is to get you more highly paid than you are.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever we're talking about how to support people at the decanal level in the dean's office, and they're like, how do we support our grad students? And I'm like, give them more money. It's the easiest support. It's the best gift card you can give somebody is $100 bill. It's the most obvious support that you most obviously need. And it's rich beyond belief. Us all sitting over there with our hundreds of thousands of dollars of salary, wondering how to support somebody who makes 45 grand a year. Oh, I wonder what it could be that would make their life better.
Yeah. Giving someone money, especially when they're on that lower income scale, gives them the agency to decide what accessibility tools they need or could get, whether that's something as basic as a car or something as basic as like additional support with, cooking. Maybe they start looking at home meals that get delivered or something like that.
Support for parents or, anybody there's like, also money in business. Yeah. Everybody needs money, obviously. It doesn't matter what they want to spend their money on.
Yeah.
But more money is better for everybody.
It helps you. It's a source of tools. So, one more question here from a member of the audience. I experienced racism when I was very young. I experience it quite a bit less now, but to sometimes not at all. But how often do you think that would have been the case back in the day? Was it very common to hear about situations like that? I'm going to interpret this as overt examples because I would say that quiet examples became a lot more pervasive. So I guess how frequently were you hearing about overt systems like this?
Okay, so there's a couple of things here. I think when you're outside of the university system, racism is more prevalent than we forget how privileged we are. Even the underprivileged among us are privileged in the university.
Yeah.
Right. We've been selected to be here. We're here because we're good at this, and we're in a pretty open-minded part of the world for the most part. That's obviously a pretty broad brush, and I retract that to a certain degree. But you see where I'm coming from. I grew up in farm country, and it was racist.
Yeah.
Except for The two guys from Jamaica that worked on the tobacco farm and were there, the entire year. Everybody was racist as hell except for those two guys, and they loved them. And they were like, yeah, but these guys don't count because they're part of our community. That is prevalent, and I imagine it still is. Back in the day, it was much more prevalent. I think leadership, like today, leadership demonstrated that it was okay to be racist to a certain degree, so you saw more of it. I think we went through a period, actually, I would say that the late 90s was less racist than it is now, because leadership in the world was less obviously racist than it is now, Donald Trump. And we're seeing an uptick in racism and classism because it's being demonstrated at the highest levels of leadership. Do I think it was common to hear about it? I think in grade school and high school, yeah. In university, I got to university and the message was, we're now done with that. Like, racism has no place here. And that was in 87. And that was the message that university sent out. Racism has no place here. So I think that it has to do with where you are, but it also, I think it got less racist, and now, unfortunately, it's getting more racist. That's, yeah.
I think that a large element of that was where it went, from being more out loud to, sometimes when we were perceiving it less frequently, being more of a quiet, pervasive, or persistent.
Well, and it changes too. Like it used to be like really unusual queerness with like, you could make fun of it openly on a sitcom. And like all sorts of like things that today you watch sitcoms from the 80s, it is shocking what people would say, even racist things, but about queerness, about body image, just across the board, far more vocal. And I think that's because leadership at the time was far more vocal.
I think our final question is a question that is asked to every single guest. And I am actually pretty interested in what your response here is. What is your favorite molecule or element and why?
Okay, I'm gonna tell another story. I know it's shocking to everyone. My favorite molecule, that's a tough one. My favorite element, I've always now been lately saying, is gold. In 2016, our group got famous for making the first ALD gold process. But I'm going to tell this story because it was free day. It was a postdoc I think in Kathy's lab. Kathy, is that right?
Yeah, for the metachargy.
Remember, it was the year of the periodic table, and we were all everybody we knew, every inorganic chemist in the face of the planet was getting invited on the CBC to give their spiel, and you would pull your element out of a hat. And that's because Friede and I figured out Alan Neal's numerical method for picking these, and we steered it towards gold. Like he would make us each pick a number, and then he would do some math on it, and we
remember that.
And we conspired to make him talk about gold, and he was super unhappy about it. So after that, I just pulled your number out of the hat, and so gold maybe one of my favorites.
I don't remember. I haven't heard that story before.
Actually, I think Friede and I are still on that. Like, you can find it online. I might have to look at that later. Goofing around about gold. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being a part and, watching this podcast and asking the questions. If you have any follow-up questions for either me or Seán, always free to reach out to us. And thanks for having us on. Thanks for coming on.
We're easy to find on the web. So hit us up with any questions.